Hello, how are you doing? We would like to welcome you to this exclusive interview that we are going to have with Ms Christine Grau, the head of EU delegation here in Tanzania. And we are going to talk to Ms Grau on the evolving relationship between European Union and United Republic of Tanzania. If you are aware that the EU is one among the biggest partner of Tanzania, with its relations spanning on various sectors, which we will briefly discuss here, of course. And the context of this conversation, of course, is the current situation in Tanzania. Because if, I guess, you are aware of what has been happening in Tanzania in recent years or months or days, has raised a lot of questions among different people, the general public, but also Tanzania's long-standing partners and allies. So we are going to examine the relationship between Tanzania and the EU in this context. And the one who will be leading this conversation is me, Khalifa Said, and on behalf of my colleague who are behind the camera, we would like to welcome you very much to this very important conversation. Miss, Your Excellency, you are most welcome to the Chanzo. You have been in Tanzania for quite some time now, I think since September 2023. Mm-hmm. How would you describe your experience here in Tanzania?
First of all, thank you so much for having me and taking the time to talk to me also. That's always appreciated. Let me start by saying that it's now a bit more than 2.5 years that I have been here, and I don't think I have come to a final conclusion about my time here, because there's so much happening. And of course, when you come here as a new diplomat, you have to learn the country as well. So I think what has been, let me talk a bit about the factors that have been all through the time very clear to me. First of all, the hospitality of Tanzanians, it's extraordinary, and the friendliness, and I have had several visitors lately, and they're all talking about this a lot. Then the second thing, what has astonished me a lot, I have to say, even though I knew it, is the breadth of our cooperation with Tanzania. And it still happens to me now that I travel somewhere and I find an EU sign or a member state sign financed by the EU or done in cooperation with Sweden or France, So we have such a broad cooperation. I don't know, recently, for example, I saw in Stone Town again the signs, and that was far beyond my time, that buildings had been rehabilitated with the European Union. And I looked up what happened, and there we had actually trained artisans in Stone Town for the rehabilitation of the very specific houses, So this is just a very special example. And then I think the third big constant, and that was from the beginning, was really also the youth. So you know that I have engaged from the beginning very much with the youth. We have, of course, also a strong gender focus, but I'm really impressed by the youth. And there's so many young, brilliant people who are engaged, committed, who are challenging, of course, also, they are not always easy, to talk to, but we have seen so many and engaged with so many brilliant young people around Tanzania who have a very clear aim to move forward the country, and that is really, really impressive. Yeah. Some of them I have asked them, do you ever sleep, You work, you study, you have an association, you engage, you do an extra training, so this is very impressive. Yeah.
As you mentioned, of course, you are doing a lot of things as an ambassador representing the EU here in Tanzania. But beyond official meetings, you know, diplomatic cables, development reports, what has been your most memorable experience in this country that, you know, have given you a unique insight into the Tanzanian people and their aspirations that you will carry with you long after your tenure ends?
I don't think I can put a finger on one specific element. There are so many different ways how we engage beyond the government, of course, with civil society, with different actors. But I will go back to the youth again. You know, you can engage with civil society in completely different sectors, but you see that they are very committed to start business, to improve, you know, the situation, or let's say of farmers, for example. We do a lot in agriculture, you know. Then we see the seaweed farmers, for example, where we do incubators. So all through, they're very committed. And then one element maybe I should say is that impressed me. That was my first year of the 8th of March. There was an 8th of March celebration. I have never seen something like this in Europe. It was really a full event, you know, and a very strong of the gender dimension celebrating. But that is maybe because you put more focus on the 8th of March than it is done in different countries in the European Union by now.
Tanzania is not your first post. I am aware that you served in various capacities for the European External Action as well as the European Commission. And my question is, how does your experience in Tanzania compare to your previous assignments?
Well, it's my first ambassador post, so I have a different responsibility. I have a different engagement, of course, with government than I had when I was an economic advisor or head of, you know, different areas. But all three posts were very different, and it is a different culture in each country, but it's also along the days, it's a different geopolitical situation, you know. I was on one post in West Africa, as you know, which was also, by the way, very rich and of potential like Tanzania is. And we worked completely different as European Union still at that time, you know. We were much more in the donor, not in the partnership relation like we do it now. Now we are development partners. At that time, we built hospitals, we built schools. We don't do this anymore, you know. This is the traditional aid. But it was a very positive experience as well. But of course, we saw later coming in that there needs to be a responsibility of the state. The European Union cannot replace a state. We can help, but for example, if we build schools, it does not help if there's no budget for paying the teachers, for the maintenance, for the school material, equal opportunities for the children to go. So we have gone away from this approach. And then, of course, I was in an enlargement country, and that is a completely different experience. You know, when you want to become a member of the European Union, you have a very clear book what you have to do. You do not become a member if you're not a democracy. You do not become a member if you don't respect human rights. You do not become a member if you have not economically advanced market situation which allows you to enter the European Union and to be in the internal market. You do not enter the European Union if you have not a free judiciary and an independent judiciary. So we were completely different in enlargement countries, but they are the countries, they have a very clear goal. They want to become a member of the European Union, which is a peace project, but also economic project, of course. So we work very differently.
Yeah, and back to, thank you very much, Your Excellency. And back to Tanzania now, you are in charge of fostering Tanzania-EU relations. You are the head of delegation here in Tanzania. And I would like to know from you, what do you see as the most unique opportunity towards that end, towards fostering EU-Tanzania relation?
The most important factor, I would say, not opportunity, is that we are, as European Union, we are political and an economic community. and we want political and economic engagement. But what is our big advantage is that I am not alone as EU ambassador. It's me, but I'm supported by 12 EU member states ambassadors. So we are a big, big group. And behind us, of course, there's overall 27 member states. So even if there's not an embassy here, we're still representing also the other countries of the European Union. And that, of course, gives us quantity power, I would say, but also a diversity. And as European Union, what has been very important for us is always to respect each other's diversity, but being united. We want to be coherent. And that helps a lot also when you're an ambassador of the European Union, because you have an Italian ambassador coming in who's very interested in, let's say, agriculture, because of the coffee, obviously, you know. Then we work together on the coffee sector. We have, let's say, the other example, Germany coming in, a very big interest on blue economy and tourism. Then we work together on those areas. So we have a big mass of enterprises, funding behind us. Our new approach is, of course, often implemented by member states also. And that gives us a unique opportunity and power. On the side of Tanzania, now, of course, we have the Vision 2050. What we have seen in the Vision 2050 is that we are aligned on the way how we want to work on the development as partner of Tanzania. And then let's not forget the very basis of our cooperation is the Samoa Agreement. And it has 6 very clear priority areas that we all signed up to. So we know very well that we have a framework with which we should work together. Yeah.
Thank you. And conversely, what is the most significant challenge you have encountered at the head of EU delegation here in Tanzania that you did not anticipate that you would encounter?
For an ambassador, what is always very relevant is that you have direct access, you know, to your counterparts. But that's not only at my level; that is at the lower level as well. So we work on the technical level, we work on the senior management level, we work with ministers. And there, each country is different, of course, you know. I know when I was a young official in another country, I could speak directly to a minister. In Tanzania, of course, you're more formal, so you have access to the ministers. It takes a bit more time, you know. I think
it takes more time
than in other countries, for example. But we respect, you know, the way how things are being done in Tanzania. For me, one element that has changed a lot, and that is not linked to Tanzania, is we're in a different geopolitical context now. And some things need to go very quickly. Some things we are forced to do very quickly. Some things put us in more difficulties because we have to look at the relationships and partners. But I think we all know that we are living in a world now, and that for us as European Union has a strong impact.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned in my introduction, the EU is a major Tanzania's development partner. If I get it correctly, it has a commitment of over €700 for the 2021-2027. Of course, and you mentioned, for example, the complementation from bilateral support of EU member states. You mentioned, for example, Italy. So if we take EU member states and their relations to Tanzania, it is a big partner, and you are implementing, of course, a lot of projects on the ground. And I wanted to hear from you if there is any project that you are particularly proud of.
Oh, that's a trick question. You want to trap me here?
Because I know, I mean, as you said, EU is in many places. It is engaged on so many things and sectors. But if you were to choose one project that you are particularly proud of, what would it be?
I'm really sorry, but I cannot answer that question. But I can tell you what I'm very proud of in general, because you know, over time our engagement changed, and of course also, as you said, member states are working in different areas. As European Union, so you're right. 2021, 2027, it's more than 1 trillion Tanzanian shilling that we give, and that's grants. Huh? So that does not cover the member states, and that does not also, we have loans coming in, you know, we are giving credits. We have on the Global Gateway a completely new way of working. I can come back on that later. But for example, as European Union here in Tanzania, we went out of health. We don't do health anymore since many years. We don't do education. But then we have Ireland, for example, which is a very strong actor in the health sector, you know. What we have decided as European Union, and in agreement, of course, with the member states, because this is always discussed, the strategy is always discussed in Brussels with the member states and agreed with everybody, is that we focus. We don't do everything anymore, but we focus. And we have now, for the upcoming 2 years, what we want to focus on is digital, where we have done a lot in the last year, as a matter of fact. And we have become very active with the twinning project, where we have Finland and Estonia. We want to do much more on the critical mineral side. And we want to do a lot on agriculture, where we did a lot in the past. But what I'm really proud of is that we have an approach which is that we are not going in and taking out, but we have what we call a 360-degree approach. So when we go and work on a sector with the government, what we want is that it's mutually beneficial. It's a win-win situation. So we do not just, let's say we work on a critical mineral project. We will look at vocational training for the people. We will look at the streets going to the mine. We will look at the high power that is needed. So do we have to invest in a substation? We will look at the off-taking, which is of interest for the European Union. We will look at environmental. We have always the obligation to do environmental and social impact on the region. That's, we cannot avoid. It's just a rule. So we have a 360 degrees approach. And this is very beneficial for you on the value addition as Tanzanians, but also for us, because we know that we have a sustainable supply chains. We know that we increase stability and the overall economic development. And that's also why we then come in, you know, with other instruments like small credit facilities, which help startups. We always engage the youth, you know, because to provide work, to help them, as I said, launch startups, for example. So it is a complete package. And that is what makes me proud, because it's a real partnership approach in a way.
My last question in this part, of course, is to what extent or how does the EU ensure that in these projects that EU is undertaking in Tanzania, Tanzanians are genuine partners, for example, in designing and implementing, rather than just the passive recipients of EU legislation?
You know that we are told a bit complicated and difficult, and I think that is your answer, because you have to talk many times with us before the project is done, exactly to look at all this. And that involves the counterparts at all levels. So private sector, associations, government, local structures, you know. So this is how we work, and it has worked very well. We are now, for example, if you want another sector, because of course tourism sector we're very strong, as you know, as coming as tourists, but also there's a big tourist industry now. We're having programs under the Blue Economy, where we are broadening this approach, where we're, for example, trying to have more sustainable tourism. We have funds for startups. We have, again, training for young people to work in the tourism sector. We are complementing it by a regional approach at the EAC on mutual recognition, but also having East Africa as a region. So it's like another area where we're not only having economic interests, but we are also trying to develop the sector further for Tanzania. So for me, that's also a very good example how we work at the moment.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. 2026, far and beyond, is different from 2023 when you presented your credential to President Samia Suluhu Hassan as the new ambassador of European Union. Back then, the whole country was in the mood of reconciliation, and so much was happening, and there was so much optimism from the citizens and even partner of Tanzania. But now it's different. So, for example, the European Parliament, for example, passed a resolution on November condemning post-election repression in Tanzania following the October 2025 election. Some actors who historically have not been very vocal in condemning the way elections are being done in Tanzania have been vocal in this instance. Particularly, for example, the African Union, which assessed that the election failed to comply with the democratic standards, citing ballot stuffing, internet blackouts, the October election, President Samia was declared winner by almost 90–80%, which is unprecedented in the region. And we saw what happened with the protest and how the state responded to those protests. And I want to ask you, Your Excellency, given this context, how does the EU reconcile its partnership with a government whose electoral legitimacy has been so seriously questioned?
Thank you for that difficult question. Let me maybe go a bit broader first. First of all, the events were terrible. I mean, we still really feel the pain of the dead people, also especially considering that there's still bodies missing. It's just terrible, and I know that it's a big shock for all Tanzanians. If you want an easy answer, I can tell you that we have, through the Samoa Agreement, a very clear way how we engage with the government. Because the government has signed up to, if you read the different priorities and areas, to respect fundamental rights and human rights, to go for transparent and fair elections, to have an independence of judiciary. This is all written in the Samoa Agreement. So if you want an easy answer, it should not change my work engagement with the government because they signed up to it. It's still valid, so we should work on that same basis.
But do they live up to those principles? Because that would be the question.
That is the Tanzanian question. That's an EU question as well, yes. And you saw, of course, that we made statements as well after the elections. So there was a statement by the EU-27 where we had questions about the elections. We raised the issues also of human rights, alleged human rights violations on kidnappings and so on. We have had specific asks in those statements as well. But we referred also to the Samoa Agreement. And we said that at the end of this EU-27 statement, this is what you signed up to. But again, also, is it only for the European Union? Has Tanzania not signed to a number of international agreements, like UN Charter and so on, where they have clearly committed to this? So for me, it's one way how we deal with it, but I think it's in itself, it's a Tanzanian question. Yeah, have you signed up to this, and are you continuing to work on this?
Yeah, with respect, Your Excellency. Yes. So, is Tanzania, in this moment, living up to the principles established in the Samoa Agreement? And if it doesn't, what does the EU do?
We do what we always do. We are in a permanent dialogue with them. And you know that Foreign Minister Kombo has been to Brussels. All those issues have, of course, been raised at highest political level. And as European Union, we have gone through many crises and we are always going for dialogue. Now, we cannot replace the Tanzanian government to do the right thing. What we can do is to say what we think should be done, and this is very clearly in the statements. like for credible investigations, transparent investigations. We have also asked for the inquiry committee, of course, also.
What if he doesn't heed those calls? And of course, it isn't public that the EU has been raising these issues, of course. But the question is, what will happen if these calls will go unheeded, in violation, of course, of the principles established in the Samoa Agreement? Is there going to be any consequences?
Yes, that I'm not able to tell you because we are now looking. We are looking. I mean, as I said, the dialogue has exchanged on these issues which are critical. Tanzania has presented, of course, its perspective as well, and our assessment on how these issues are being dealt with is going to happen. I cannot tell you at which moment because we don't know when the inquiry committee report will come out, but it's of course not only the report, it's much broader than that, It is also the issues on how is Tanzania engaging with the youth, for example. The European Union has a strong experience, to engage with the youth. We have set up structures, we have a youth strategy. There's so much we could also engage with Tanzania on beyond just saying you did not do this, you did not do this, because we have gone through many crises ourselves, and we know when you talk, you can do things together, So if you ask me, will there be a black or white assessment? There will be an assessment, but where it will lead, that will depend, as I said, also on how Tanzania will look at the actual root causes of what has happened.
Does the EU have red lines?
Do we have what?
Red lines.
That's a good question, of course. As we are a union based on values, for us, it's a precondition on many of the things that we do. But I cannot tell you now, this and this will be our red line for Tanzania. Because we are, of course,
but
also... We have principles on which we work.
Yeah. And they have not been crossed in Tanzania, in your opinion?
This is something we will assess very soon. I would expect that. But again, I don't think that the European Union will make the change in Tanzania. It's Tanzania that will live up, because does Tanzania not have red lines? Does Tanzania not have its commitments, how it wants the society to be? If we're in a partnership, it cannot be that, you will tell me I'm interfering in Tanzanian politics. I'm not, but we have our principles and we have a partnership. So let's see how we move forward on that together and to be honest about it.
Thank you, Your Excellency. You say that the EU cannot change Tanzania, but it can change the way it relates with Tanzania, can't it?
I think we have done that over the years many times, Yeah.
So what is the EU doing right now to press for an independent investigation, for example, into post-election violence that we saw? Like what concrete measures or action you are taking? Because, and it's interesting that you mentioned you have this agreement with the Tanzanian government as constituted in the Samoa Agreement, and you agree on some values, on some principles. And you may be hesitant to say that they have not been violated, but the public, the general public, people who are familiar with the Samoa Agreement and the principles enshrined, they know that Tanzania has violated those principles. So what is the EU doing concretely to ensure that there is some accountability for what happened?
As I told you, during the meetings in Brussels, these issues were discussed at highest political level and exchanged on. Concretely on the ground here, we have not engaged with the inquiry committee. We have met the committee with the full diplomatic community. The government knows our expectations. We have asked, actually, a few weeks ago, another meeting with the inquiry committee, which has not happened yet. But we are not participating in the hearings. Of course, we were very carefully following on the media side the different hearings once they were public. and which were very interesting to see when people spoke up also. But now, as they're not public anymore, that's more difficult. But we have not provided support to the inquiry committee to do its work because Tanzania has not asked for it. You know, there would have been the possibility, of course, if Tanzania had asked for it, can we bring in external experts and so on, but this has not been asked by Tanzania.
Thank you. And it's interesting that you mention this meeting of January 29th of 2026, where Tanzania Foreign Minister Mr. Kombo led a high-level delegation to Brussels. And what you are telling me is not in the official communique that has been released following that meeting. So the communication actually read that the meeting focused on deepening cooperation, strengthening the partnership, and safeguarding continuity in development cooperation, investment flows, and economic confidence. This was the statement from the Tanzanian side, and I have tried to look for the statement from the European. I didn't find. I don't think the people at Brussels issued any statement. And I want to ask you, Your Excellency, can you help us understand the strategic rationale for this high-level engagement with the Tanzanian authorities at this particular moment? Because at least from what I know, some people are somehow not happy. What was the rationale for this high-level engagement with the Tanzanian authorities at this particular moment?
I'm not clear what you say. People know are not happy, but maybe let me.
Some people have questions the way the EU treated this whole thing. Giving Tanzanian authorities this high-level engagement. And as I mentioned, the official statement coming from Tanzanian authorities, it looks like there were no talk on human rights, democracy, or any of the things that you say you share in common. And I just want to pick your mind on, was this meeting important at this particular moment?
For me, and as our experience as European Union, dialogue is always important. There's no alternative to dialogue. I mean, think about your own family. You might not always agree with everybody in your family, but you talk to them because you have a greater good in what you want to think about. And the dialogue, of course, is relevant because if you don't have a dialogue, you're sitting in your bubbles and you're not exchanging, you know? So for me, dialogue absolutely needs to be. From the EU side, it's not normal to come out with statements. We have different mechanisms, but what is written here has as well been discussed. You know, what kind of a partnership do we want? Are we important partners? Do we continue to be strong partners? Do we want to, move also in the regional context ahead that we are to each other reliable partners? But that reliable partnership is, of course, based on dialogue. Otherwise, I mean, if you don't talk, then you talk, then we're in a problematic situation where you don't agree anymore on your common goals. And the continuation of our partnership, how each side considers this to be, and do we agree on that or not, that is a normal issue that's been discussed. And that we don't make any statement about this is not unusual in Brussels. It's not unusual. Because if you make official statements in Brussels, normally you need 27 member states, like the statement we did after the elections. If there are so many different ways of engaging, so HRVP has actually, our foreign minister, she has actually put on her story that she met the foreign minister, but there was not a statement. The same thing happens with the Commissioner Sikela, who met her, who's the development cooperation, but she was received at your minister was received at a high level.
Yeah.
And very interesting, and I think this was very good, well, by the European Parliament as well. The Vice President met him. But he also went to the Political and Security Committee of the European member states. So he also met member states ambassadors, 27, discussing about politics. And there are never statements after this, but it's an open exchange on the issues. Okay. There were a lot of questions, and the minister answered a lot of questions as well.
Yes. Thank you very much for clarifying, because as I said in my previous question, that reading the statements from the Tanzanian authorities, it doesn't look like there was any conversation on human rights, on democracy, and you want to assure us that these issues were raised during this meeting.
Of course, yes. Yes.
And what specifically? What specifically?
Like we have put them in the statements that are out or after the elections, of course, yes. Yeah.
And overall, how should Tanzanians interpret this meeting? Because, and you mentioned earlier that we are in a unique geopolitical situation right now, and people are, anxious, maybe that the EU will be more interested to focus more on its economic, for example, trade and investment interests, and turn a blind eye on the values that it holds dear, on the principles that are established in the Samoa Agreement. There is that fear, at least from the people that we engage with. How should Tanzanians interpret this meeting? Should they interpret it as the government of Tanzania put it, deepening a cooperation, strengthening the partnership, or as a way towards accountability, and how should we read it?
I cannot talk for the Tanzanian government how they should interpret it, but I think
Tanzanian people.
Yeah, I think what is very clear is that as European Union, and that includes the member states, we are not only an economic body. We are a political and economic body based on what I explained to you before. So the question you asked on the sideline comes in on the top of that. The European Union, of course, also, and that's due to a number of reasons, but mainly, of course, also the Russian aggression on Ukraine in 2022.
2022, yes.
2022 sees itself in a geopolitical different position now. And we are looking for reliable partners, we're looking for stability, and we are looking for, how can I say, a coherent, reliable relation, and that includes also multilateralism. But as European Union, we will always be based on a political, value-based community as well. Now, it is up to the different governments around the globe also to tell us, how do you want to engage with the European Union? And many of them want to engage with us now exactly for that reason. Because we are holding up European human rights. For us, it's a very relevant issue. So it's not, that, how can I say, we are imposing this on other countries. It's rather that countries choose us exactly for that reason as well. And then, of course, we have, as European Union, and that's what the Global Gateway approach is about, we have economic interests as well, which are relevant. And we are trying to embody them in our cooperation with the countries. So I think the main question to ask is for the Tanzanian government, what kind of a relation do they want to have with the European Union as well? Knowing that this is what we stand for, And we will not withdraw. We want, to be a good partner for Tanzania. But we will certainly have to look like we do for other countries as well, but we will look at the instruments that we use. We might recalibrate them, you know. We have heard, of course, from the Tanzanian government that they want to be independent on the budget side, you know, that this is something, a sovereignty. No problem, we can reorient our support. We don't have to give budgetary support. We can do it very easily, you know, to go in the approach that we do more investment, more private sector, more less supporting institutions, but really going the private sector approach. For us, that's not a problem.
Under what circumstances would the values that the European Union holds dear take prominence than interest? I mean, you know, the question is there, and this links to my earlier question, is there a moment where the EU can say, no, this is too much. We cannot go on with this. Even if our economic and trade interest and investment interest are best served, but from the way this particular country is behaving itself, the way it treats the issues of human rights and democracy, and we cannot go on with them. Is there that moment in the way EU is dealing with other countries?
It already happened.
Where?
In the withholding of the signature for the annual action plan of 2025. So it already happened. And some of the EU member states have also not paid some of the issues. We have not agreed, you know, for some of the projects for international banks. So it has already happened. Now, the next steps of the Tanzanian government will, of course, also show what's going to happen then. And then we will have reassessment. But this will happen at different levels. Huh? This will happen at member states level. This will happen at the EU level. This will happen, of course, by the European Parliament as well. And we will see then in summer, yes, how this is going to happen. We're hoping now also the European Parliament Committee of Human Rights would like to visit Tanzania. So we're hoping also for a visit which will come in the coming months. That would be very nice. They're in touch with the embassy in Brussels on that. So as I said, we would really like to have these discussions ongoing. You know, it's not that that we will do discussions without the Tanzanian government, no. And not without the citizens, of course, because in the end, both the Tanzanian government and us, we should always have the citizens' interest first.
Yeah, and from the EU perspective, what accountability would look like? Like, for example, you said the suspension, for example, of the action plan. What would you like to see? The EU, I mean.
This is currently under discussion, and the program, the rewriting is currently looked at. So we will have discussions at different levels, as I said, with different.
Say it public.
No, at this moment, we have not decided because, like you, we are looking on what is happening. You don't take a decision, you know, from one day to the other. You are seeing.
You don't have even a rough idea of how accountability would look like? I mean, from the EU perspective.
I think what we said on the accountability is to look at the real root causes of the events. This was already put in our statements, that the assessment is transparent, and then also on, of course, judiciary and looking into kidnappings and so on.
You think that is happening? Is it happening right now?
I don't know. You tell me. Is it happening? I mean, do you know what is happening on the different?
Well, the government will say that we have a commission looking up into those issues. You think that is not enough?
I don't know. I have to see what the commission comes out with also.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So one of the responses that Tanzanian government has been giving every time people like you, the European Union and the other partner, when they comment on issues that are happening in Tanzania with regard to democracy, for example, human rights, they say, no, this is internal issue, and do not interfere with how we run our internal affairs. And we have had the president, for example, saying that people have given this government the mandate to run for the coming 5 years, and please do not lecture us on how we can run our affairs. And I want to ask you directly, when the EU, because I am talking to you as it's a head here in Tanzania, when the EU comment on local issues like human rights or democracy, on what basis does the EU do that? Is it on the basis of international law? Is that on the basis of the values that the EU have? Is that on the basis of the partnership agreement that you have with, partner country like Tanzania? What is the basis on which the EU get the authority to comment on internal issues of a particular country?
I think I partially answered that question already to you, because it goes back to what I said, that it's not EU values, it's universal values. And Tanzania has signed up to universal values as well with the UN Charter. The EU we have all parts in different international agreements. We have the Samoa Agreement, as I already said. Now, what I find interesting is that you ask as if this is ingérence. Now, Tanzania is not the only country. If you have a partnership, you engage on political and economic issues. You have these discussions with each other. And there have been many statements by other countries about the European Union as well. And it can be very well that we don't like them. But then we engage, or we go out, or we show the opposite, or other things. For example, that some of our member states have stricter laws on hate speech, for example, Germany, due to the Nazi regime. But other countries in the European Union, they have free speech really enshrined in the constitution. So some member states are being criticized for limiting hate speech, while others consider it normal. But you have still universal law values, which mean there should be free speech, there should be free assembly, there should be the right to be as you are, So those values are not EU specific. You might have differences here and there, but it's the same for Tanzania. So I don't find this is ingérence. Is it not actually be even the contrary, that when you speak to partners, that you tell each other the truth? If I were your sister and you did something, I don't like, do you think, would you prefer I don't tell you? You would say, you're really obnoxious and you're very annoying, but you would tell me, thank you for telling me, I will work on this, no? So for me, it's not an issue of higher, lower, or, telling other people. It is, what world do we want to live in? And we all subscribed to the same thing, And I mean, sorry to say that, but you talking to me is not the easiest thing for me either, you see? But you are an independent media, you ask me the questions, I might not like all of them, but still I talk to you. Yes.
And thank you very much. And how do you respond to the charge that the EU does not hold these values consistently? That you are more vocal in particular countries, but not less so in other countries. Some would even say, even within the EU itself, we see what is happening. And some think that there are some double standards in where the EU proclaim these values, that you are more interested, for example, when they are violated in country X, but not in country Y, and you be willing, for example, to turn a blind eye if the violation of those values are happening within an EU member state. How do you respond to that? That you are being, sorry to put this, you are being hypocritical, or you expose some double standards in when it comes to upholding these values?
Within the EU, you need to know there's a number of mechanisms. So first of all, before you access, as I already said, there's a full criteria you have to fulfill. But then there's also a number of reports that are being done. So there's inside the EU always a monitoring how things are going. And then there are discussions, there are public discussions in the European Parliament, for example. There is a area, for example, let's say a report on how anti-corruption is dealt with. So we are certainly not perfect, but we try to monitor those issues by ourselves a lot. And of course, we have elections. Election observer missions are always welcome. We have them then from different countries, So we are really certainly not perfect inside the EU, but I think we try our best because we have this common goal that this is the way how we want to live. Now, on your question on the coherence between different countries, the consistency, yes. I would not say that you are not right, but I would also not say that this is done intentionally, because looking at the world now, it's a very, very complicated world. And I cannot talk for Uganda or for, Guatemala, whatever, I'm here in Tanzania, so I'm dealing with Tanzania-EU relations. But the world has become much, much more complex. And we have 145 delegations worldwide. So we are really engaging with many countries. But that's also why for us the multilateral framework is so crucial. And you know that the multilateral framework is under attack. But for us, it was the solution that came up after the Second World War. It might not be perfect, but this is really the framework that we want to see much stronger. And of course, you have also your regional, as you said, African Union made a clear report, SADC made reports, So you have also regional frameworks that you can use, that you can engage with other countries. So it cannot be, that it's only the European Union. I mean, you have also an interest to speak up for Uganda, Kenya, whoever is your neighbor, because you want the region to be stable. That's what we do as well.
Absolutely. Back to Tanzania-EU relation. What is your personal vision for the EU-Tanzania relation? I mean, in the best case scenario, what would you hope to have achieved by the end of your tenure or posting?
I would be very happy if we had achieved both political but also an economic stable partnership which is covered by respect and dialogue. But I would also, we were very much interested also, in extending, for example, our cooperation in the security area. Because again, maritime security, fight against drugs, fights against organized crime, this is relevant as a global matter, fight against terrorism. And we have a lot of tools as European Union, to work that. As you know, we do, for example, the missions to protect maritime security, which again has an impact on trade, on safe fairways and so on. So overall, I think if we have a strong relationship covering broad issues with an open dialogue, and continuing to increase trade, investment, that would be ideal. But that would require that we have a common agreement on how we want our partnership to be.
And conversely, what is your greatest fear that this relation might not evolve in the way that it's supposed to? What do you fear the most?
Well, absence of dialogue, I think, is the way that it doesn't work. Then, of course, another fear would be that there would be more mis and disinformation also, because, of course, we see that this is a strong issue at the moment worldwide. And of course, the regional stability is very important, like it is for you as well. We do not want a world where it is normal again that it's the right of the more stronger person, that multilateral doesn't count, that we don't care about each other anymore. So we don't want to live in a world like this. We want, that the good way of living of people and the improvement of the living situation of everybody is there. And in your country, I mean, I'm always coming back to the youth, but they are so close to my heart. And I would be very happy to see that there is a big increase in the opportunities for the youth. And I will ask a meeting with the Minister of the Youth to also inform what we are doing, So maybe this can help, but it would be really this vibrant youth here. It would be a pity if they resign, get resignated and don't engage.
Mheshimiwa Balozi, shukran sana. Is there anything that you would like to say, to comment on that I didn't ask you about?
No, just thank you for this difficult interview. It was a pleasure. And as I said, the EU is not disengaging from Tanzania, but we will recalibrate our instruments and in discussion with the Tanzanian government. So my big hope is that there is a positive, constructive future for our partnership.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's it. This is the end of the conversation that we have been having here with the head of EU delegation to Tanzania, Your Excellency Ms Christine Grau, and we spoke about a lot of things pertaining to the EU-Tanzanian relation. I don't have anything to add at this point, and we would like to thank you for watching this conversation, and stay tuned for other conversations that we will be holding here in Tanzania. I was Khalifa Saidi, and on behalf of the entire crew, we say thank you until next time. Balozi,
Asante sana.
asante sana kwa muda wako.